Hey, what's up you guys, it's Fire, and today we're going to be testing out which 4-star craftable claymore is better. The prototype Archaic, aka Aminus, or the Snow Tomb Star Silver. Yeah, I can't believe they changed the name. I don't know why. If I didn't make this video, I probably would have kept calling it the prototype Aminus. Anyways, just a heads up, I will be doing a test on these two weapons, but I also will be doing a comparison on the Blackcliff slasher against the Snow Tomb weapon as well, so just make sure to look out for that. Originally, I was planning to have a 3-way face-off, but since I already did do a comparison against the prototype against the Blackcliff slasher, then it pretty much means that it's going to be like this. And plus, having them in a separate video makes the comparison much more easier, and it makes the decision much easier as well. But if you are curious about the prototype against the Blackcliff, then make sure to go ahead and check that out. I will say though that my opinions may have slightly changed after the release of Xinyan, so I'll just go ahead and play this clip. Now before we get into the boxing ring, I honestly didn't think that it would be this much data or comparing in this video. It turns out that the claymore that we thought were so simple is actually a lot more complicated and complex than we thought. So please do consider hitting that like button as well as subscribing, because this took a while to gather all of the data. But anyways, enough talking, let's get right into the video. Now what better way to test these weapons than the one and only Xinyan. I do have a video on Xinyan, but my Xinyan has indeed grown since then, and let's go ahead and take a look at her stats. So these are her artifacts. I am running the Bloodstained Chivalry and the Noblesse Oblige. Garbage, 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 oh, garbage, garbage. These are her talents and her constellations. These are her overall stats. Now that you've seen all of her stats, let's just get to testing. So her first basic auto attack, it seems to be hitting for 771, and she crits for 1916. For her spin attack, she does do a constant 800, and for the crit, 2016. Now let's move on to her skill. Her skill E damage does 2350 damage, and for her crit, it does 5,919. Now moving on to her ulti, the ulti will always crit because I have her at Constellation 2. It did basically around 16k, or if you want to be specific, 15,972. Now of course I don't want to be constantly throwing numbers at you, so I will have a number comparison at the end of the video. But now comes the very interesting part of the weapon. This weapon has a 2-part effect. When hitting an opponent with a normal or charged attack, it has a 60% chance of forming and dropping an Everfrost Icicle above them, dealing 80% AoE attack damage. But opponents affected by Cryo are dealt 200% attack damage and can only occur every 10 seconds. Now, let's just get this misunderstanding out of the way first. Now, what this means is that whenever the enemies are affected by Cryo, the Everfrost Icicle will deal 200% attack damage instead of dealing 80% attack damage. Not whenever an enemy is affected by Cryo, your attack will now deal 200% more damage. No, that is completely wrong and misleading. But you can actually even say that this weapon has a 6-part effect instead of 2. Yup, 6 parts. Now let's take a look at it. Whenever the icicle dropped, the damage was 503 when I was basic attacking, but when I was spinning, the attack went from 503 to 647. This is where everything started to get a little bit more complicated than I thought. You can see here that when I crit with the icicle while basic attacking, I was hitting for 1266, but on the other hand, when I was spinning, I had a crit of 1630. So this basically means that depending on which attack you're going to do, it changes the number. Now you might be wondering, if that's the case, would the number change if the icicle landed not on the first basic attack but on the second one? Well, I tested it and nothing happened. So that's a busted myth. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the second part of the weapon effect. I had Chungyang here to afflict the enemy with a Cryo effect. Whoa, did you just see that? Let's see that one more time. why was I dealing much more damage when I was basic attacking with Chungyung's E than when I didn't? So does that mean that you really do get the 200% attack when the enemy is affected by Cryo? Well, if you go to your local Genshin Honey, link in the description, you can look at the Ruin Guard stats. The physical resistance is a lot more higher than the Cryo resistance. So what did I do? I went to go test it. I found an enemy that had the same amount of physical resistance and Cryo resistance, and lo and behold, the result is what you expected. I did a lot more damage with the basic attack than when in Chunyoung's ability.
But Yumifire, you're converting the attacks to Cryo, so of course it doesn't apply.
Well, that brings me back to the clip that I showed you earlier. Xinyan still did the same amount of damage even though he was affected by Cryo. But then that also made me question, what about the icicle itself? Would it do more damage to an enemy that had less resistance to Cryo and deal less damage to an enemy that had high resistance? And nope, it didn't matter as well. Although it does say icicle, it doesn't mean that the attack itself is Cryo. The reason why the Cryo Whopper was taking much more damage is because of the difference in levels. And even the damage isn't that far apart. So just imagine if they were on the same level, they both would be taking the same amount of damage. Now going back on track here. The damage dealt by the icicle when the enemy was affected by Cryo was 1257 with the basic attack. And for the spin attack, it did 1618. And these are the crits. Now you can kind of see why this was so complicated and basically a 6-part effect. 1 for the effect itself, 2 while the enemy is under Cryo, and 3 the basic attack, 4 for the spin attack, and the same for the second part of the condition as well, making this practically a 6-part effect. After finding this out, this made me wonder that what if this effect also applies to the prototype as well? And the answer is yes, it does. So let's just go ahead and follow the same format. We're going to cover the basic attack, the skills, and then the weapon effects. So the basic attack for the prototype was 712, and the crit was 1795. For the spin, it was 732, and the crit was 1845. For Xinyan's E, it was 2615, and the crit was 6586, and the ulti was 15,349. Now comes for the weapon effect. While basic attacking, it was 1.4k, and while the crit was 3.5k. And for the spinning attack, it was 1.7k, and the crit was 4.4k. Now that we got all of the numbers out of the way, feel free to pause the video and compare each and every single stat if you want to. Now let's get to the point of which one is better to invest into. Now at the bottom of the list, I made it pros and cons, so let's go ahead and take a look at that. For the cons of the Snow Tomb Star Silver, it definitely has to be the primary stat. The primary stat is a physical main stat, and it's not viable for all characters. The reason why it's not viable for all characters is because it is a physical damage percentage, and that physical percentage only applies to basic attacks. Characters such as Diluc, Chungyung, Noelle, and even Beidou are not suitable for this weapon. Beidou is very heavily reliant on her E, meaning that this 34.5% physical damage is not going to be applied to her E. Same thing with Chungyung. His E converts your attacks to Cryo, meaning that this is going to get nullified. Same thing with Diluc. Whenever he ulties, it turns his attacks into Pyro, and for Noelle as well, it turns her attacks into Geo. So the only 2 characters that are probably useful for this is Xinyan and Razor. This is literally built for Razor or Xinyan. So if you're thinking about using it on Beidou or any of the other characters, don't. It's actually literally bad for it. Now another con about the Snow Tomb Silver is that its effect is not as strong if you don't have Cryo. So if you just take a look at this, it is absolutely insane how good the prototype is. So without the ice effect, the basic attack whenever the icicle falls is only 503, not even comparing to the basic attack of the prototype. and it's not even up to the Snow Tomb Silver. So without the ice, it's literally even worse than the basic attack of the prototype or even the Snow Tomb Star. But let's say you do have the ice effect on the enemy. The attacks and the numbers are not too bad compared to the prototype. It's almost very much the same. And if you take a look at the basic attack, of course the Snow Tomb Star Silver is going to outdamage the prototype because it has a physical damage primary stat. So adding on to the ice effect, which basically matches the prototype, and the Snow Tomb Star Silver is also out damaging with the basic attack, then only then the Star Silver is going to be better than the prototype. So that goes into one of the pros where it can out damage the prototype with certain conditions. And compared to the prototype, one of the cons is that it can't be a one trick, of course, because it has a primary stat of percent attack. So one, it's not going to out damage with the basic attacks, and two, with the Star Silver almost matching the prototype in terms of the effect attack, then it's kind of just meh in that area. But one of the good things about the prototype is that it can work with all characters. Noelle, Diluc, Chungyang, Beidou, Xinyan, all of them can be useful with the prototype Archaic. But now let's take a look at the refinements. Which one is more worth the investment? So at refinement level 1, it is definitely the obvious choice of having the Snow Tomb Star Silver if you have ice character and to help out with the damage. But the story does start changing when you get to a higher refinement level. So first off, let's just take a look into the Star Silver weapon. So at refinement level 5, hitting an enemy with a normal or charged attack has a 100% chance of forming and dropping an Everfrost Icicle, dealing 140% AoE attack damage, but if they are affected by Cryo, it does 360. As to compare to the prototype, on hit or normal charged attacks has a 50% chance of dealing the additional 480% attack damage to opponents within a small AoE. Now going back to the Star Silver, you can see that on Refinement 5, hitting an opponent with normal or charged attacks has a 100% chance of forming. And if you saw in the video that when you are spinning attack, the Icicle does indeed do more damage. So that means that before you initiate the fight, you can just do your spin attack, activate the 100% and deal the most amount of damage. But taking a look further down, opponents that are affected by Cryo are dealt 360% attack damage. That's only the equivalent to a refinement rank 3 of a prototype. Yeah, refinement 5 is only the equivalent to a refinement 3 on the prototype. And if you take a further look down on the refinement rank 5, then you do 480% attack damage compared to 360. That is a whopping 120% difference. Now taking into consideration that both of these weapons are at refinement 1, the difference is only 40%. If you are going to invest into a weapon, it has to be definitely the prototype. The prototype wins in this situation. Anyways guys, I hope that helped you into choosing which weapon to invest into. I personally would just invest into the prototype and stick with it, but you know what, you are you and you can still invest into the Star Silver. If you can prove me wrong, go ahead and prove me wrong. But guys, I have spent hours and hours gathering the data, and not only that, especially editing, so it would do me a great favor if you guys do hit that like button as well as the subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good morning, have a good evening, and have a good night. Peace!